Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tim Dillon Show. Drug overdoses are down nationally, and officials are wondering what's working. People cannot afford drugs. It's actually terrible. This is actually an indication of how terrible the economy is. People cannot afford the quantities of drugs needed to overdose. They have fallen. Overdose deaths have fallen for 6 months straight. Turn me down a little bit. I'm a little loud in my headphones. Okay, turn me up a little. Find a balance. Perfect. I'll tell you right now, this is not a good indication of the economy. A good economy, people have enough money to buy enough fentanyl to check out. If you are sitting there and you can barely OD, if you can barely check out because you've got nothing, coast to coast, major U.S. cities are seeing measurable drops in drug overdose deaths. Public health officials welcome the news despite an inability to fully explain the decrease. Nobody has any money. Drug overdose deaths fell 12.7%. This is the largest recorded reduction in overdose death. It's because people don't have any money. They don't have any disposable income. They're strapped. They're shot. They're fucked. If I was running for president right now, I would say my main goal is to get people enough money to overdose in this country the way they were. Enough money to die on the street the way they were when things were good. This photo of me and my godson is being shared around social media, and it's actually beautiful. This is me and my godson after I bought him a, what is that, a Kalashnikov?
Kalashnikov.
Is that what it is?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah. I'm always correct. That is Yahya Sinwar. That is actually not me. Yahya Sinwar, who has died. Is the war over? Is the war over now? Does the war end? Does the war end? Will the war end? Can the war end? Can it end? Will it end? What's going on with Iran? I think maybe that's the next phase of the war is Iran. Iran says it's planning to hold first joint military drills with Saudis in the Red Sea. Riyadh has not confirmed it will join the exercises. Saudis are not going to help Iran. That's not going to work, Iran. Go to Russia, go to China. The Saudis are not going to help. I don't know what is going to happen. Saudis and Iran have long been rivals in the region who have long backed opposing sides in conflict zones. Severed diplomatic ties in 2016. However, Shiite Muslim-dominated Iran and Sunni-majority Saudi Arabia resumed relations last year under a surprise China-brokered deal. Another example of China playing a constructive role in world affairs. China, everybody. All we hear is how bad China is. They're going to kill everybody, and China's making peace deals. Whereas we either don't have an interest or can't. China's out there building schools in Africa and getting these people together. I'm sure China has their negatives. We all have our negatives, don't we? Don't we all have our negatives? Don't the best people have a dark side? China has a dark side. China has a dark side. But it doesn't matter when you see them do something good. When China does something good, we should say, good for you, China. Thank you, China. Thank you, China. We shouldn't always be focusing on the internment camps they put those Uyghurs in or whatever. That's always negative. I don't like that. It's like when your friend marries a girl and you bring up that she was a big whore or something. It's like, enough. People change and grow. I think they're still in those internment camps. I don't really know. It's not my business. Pizza Hut offers to print resumes on boxes and deliver to employers. I like this. We know Pizza Hut. We love Pizza Hut. We're not going to play the video we made about Pizza Hut because we were almost sued by the good people at Yum Brands. But Pizza Hut aims to support your job search with the launch of Res Z Aims, a pizza box that doubles as a resume. Now, if you want bleaker news than this, I cannot help you. This is the bleakest article of all the articles. We have articles about airstrikes burning people alive. We have articles about couples killing each other. We have articles about all the things they're doing in Florida. And yet, nothing is as bleak as this article where Pizza Hut is trying to help people get work. Okay? Listen to this. Today, Pizza Hut is launching Resumes.
Resumes.
Wait.
It's like a pun, like resumes. Resumes.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that makes sense. Resumes. Yeah, I was like, what is that? Okay, but they're not spelling it. Okay, gotcha. Okay. There's no way anyone participating in this program is pronouncing it correctly. They're all pronouncing it like I am. Today, Pizza Hut is launching Resumes, a new offering aimed to help professionals stand out in today's competitive job market by delivering their resumes to prospective employers in a way that is sure to turn heads via Pizza Hut's iconic pizza boxes. 75% of resumes are never read, but an office pizza is hard to ignore. Amid the time of year coin September surge, where there is a notable increase in job opportunities across industries at the start of Q4, Pizza Hut is leveraging what it does best, deliver hot, ready-to-eat pizza to help job seekers grab the attention of employers and deliciously differentiate themselves in a crowded job market. Can you imagine if this is your Hail Mary? Can you imagine if this is it? Let me tell you how bad it is. You have a chair, you have a rope, and the rope is already tied to the beam. You have tested the beam, and you know it can hold your weight. You are sitting there, and you are saying, fuck it. One last shot, one last Hail Mary to land a fucking job. I'm going to send a greasy, disgusting Pizza Hut pizza with my hot resume in it. The resume is going to come out hot, smelling like garlic, probably smudged. Like the ink is going to be all smudged, okay? This is the bleakest thing I maybe have ever read on the show, and all I've done for the last 8 years is read the bleakest, worst news, throw the baby in a volcano, whatever else everyone's doing out there. Resumes allows job applicants in the toughest job market, New York City, to stand out like never before. I mean, can you imagine this? This piping hot resume will be almost impossible to ignore. We know finding a job can be daunting, especially during this key hiring season. So we wanted to lend a hand to our job-seeking customers. So Pizza Hut is struggling so much as a brand that this is how bad they are doing, by the way. And this should not be over, we cannot overstate how terrible Pizza Hut is doing. That this crack scheme, okay, to deliver resumes to companies by combining Pizza Hut's iconic pizza boxes with job seekers' resumes, we're hoping to help resumes drum up the same excitement as office pizza and help applicants make. First of all, do you even get a pizza?
Here, let's find out.
Do you even get a goddamn? Because by the way, if you delivered something that wasn't a pizza with a resume in it, I mean, I would. That's like you would go insane. And now they're out of it. We just clicked on it and they're out of it.
Oh man. No, so they must have been selling. I'll check on X.
Can you imagine we got John's name in a pizza box 5 years ago, and now he's the CFO of this company? John delivered his resume to us in a pizza box right before hanging himself. He was standing on the chair when we called him. I mean, this is the worst. I've never heard of a worse idea.
Oh, yeah, it came with a pizza. Yep, there you go. Here you go.
Can you imagine someone chewing when they call you and tell you they're not interested, by the way? Someone who caught like they're chewing and they go, by the way, we're not really looking for anyone at this time, but thank you for the pizza, you dunce. Thanks for the pizza, you loser, you complete zero. Thanks for this hot, delicious pizza. We do not need you. We're not interested at this time. We're not in the market for you, scum. But thanks for this pizza. Who pays for the pizza? The unemployed loser?
Yeah.
So the unemployed loser has to pay for the pizza given to the corporation that doesn't want him. So you're bribing a corporation by sending them a pizza they don't even want you. You're not even going to hear. You're just going to send pizzas all around New York, and no one's even going to, it's never going to work. This doesn't work. This is not a movie. This is like that movie when Richard Gere and Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman. Oh, the hooker is so clean cut and sweet, and the business guy. It doesn't work. This is like a 90s movie. It's an early 2000s rom-com where you deliver a pizza and you get a job. That's not what happens. Some fat secretary is going to eat the pizza. Your resume is going in the trash. This isn't it. Stop thinking like everything's this whimsical way it's going to happen. It's not a whimsical thing, this world. When I grew up, everybody believed everything was whimsy and whimsical. I'm going to propose. I'm going to put the ring in the cake, and my girlfriend's going to notice it. She's going to take a bite of the cake. It's whimsical. It's imprinted on our minds because we've watched so many movies where we go, you know what? I just need to do something unique and fun and silly to make me stand out. It's not a bad job market. I'm just not creative enough. What if I sent him a griddle with my resume as the wrapping around it? Then I'd get a job. That's not the way it works. That's not going to help you. You have to figure out something. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news here. You're going to have to figure out something else. You're not going to fast food trick your way into employment. Sorry. Sending a box of Raising Cane's over to the local bank and maybe they need a teller is not going to work. Sorry, guys. I spelled my name in French fries. I would like to meet the one. And who is this? If this, by the way, if this has worked for one person, I will give you $1,000. If you can prove to me, Tim Dillon, I don't even know. What's the email? Are we just going to get spam emails if we give the email out?
Yeah, we shouldn't. Well, we could. I mean, it's a...
Yeah, but it's just, there's going to be 1,000 email. Like, if you can prove this works, I'll give you $1,000 and I'll interview you on the show, but it's not going to ever work. If this has worked for one person, I'll give you $1,000. If you can prove that sending a pizza with your resume on it got you the job, I will give you $1,000. Where should they hit us up?
TD Show Apps.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
TD Showops at Gmail.
Yep.
TDSHOWOPS at Gmail.
Yep.
But don't waste our time. And I know you're going to send a bunch of shit. That's fine. I don't care. But if you want $1,000, you have to prove this worked for you. $1,000. This is not any type of, we're going to investigate. Now, you might not even want us to because you might not want the company to know you listen to this show, depending on where you work. I don't know. But we are going to investigate with pizza, with the company, with you. And if this works and everyone's proud of it, I give you $1,000. You will get $1,000. But this has not worked. Why is everyone hating on this Yahya Sinwar's wife? She's got a $32,000 Birkin bag. I think it's nice. Shout out Burke. She's got a nice Burke. Is that the ostrich? Birkins go way up, by the way. 32 is not even the highest end. You know, there are Birkin bags for 80, 90. Rare Birkins can go up. 32 is a mid-level Birkin.
If that, yeah. Maybe entry level.
Entry level is probably about 19 or 20, but 32 is not. I mean, it looks very much like a basic black Birkin in the Hamas tunnel. I'm not super impressed. But by the way, why shouldn't, here's a great question, by the way. Here's a moral question. Why shouldn't this woman have a Birkin? Why shouldn't a terrorist have a Birkin? Well, she's a terrorist. Okay. She's got a Birkin. What do you want her to have? What is she?
Tory Burch?
Well, yeah, but right. But what is the point here? What is that? Like, I don't understand this. Is this the terrorists are being irresponsible with their money narrative that Israel keeps trying to get everybody going on? Well, do you know how much the suites of the Qatar Four Seasons cost? I don't know. What? I don't understand. Wait, this is why wait a minute. Hold on. They're terrorists, right? Hamas a terrorist group. That's the whole point. Now, whether you agree with their aims or not, whatever, their whole thing is like they try to get stuff going. That's what they try to do, Hamas. I'm not saying it's good. Follow me here. Follow me. They're trying to get stuff going. Hamas. It's a way to say it. Is it the best way to say it? No, but they're trying to get stuff going. Where are they going to stay? Where are they going to stay? Like, what are they going to have? They're not paragons of morality. They're going to have the Burke. They're going to get a Birkin. Do you know how much she must nag this man about going in and out of the tunnel and how hard it is? This woman was living in the Four Seasons, but think about this because it's about the family. She's living in the Four Seasons in Qatar. She probably doesn't know they're going to do this whole thing. She might. She's like Carmela Soprano. She doesn't know. She doesn't know. She just wants to get a shore house. She just wants to get a shore house. Okay? I watched that episode of Whitecaps. God, I love The Sopranos. So this woman, I don't know her name, but what's her name? Do we know her name? I love people's names. Names matter. They just call her the wife. I know. They're not huge on the rights over there for these ladies. Okay. So the wife, the old ball and chain is probably like we were in the Four Seasons. I was waking up every day to fluffy eggs. Now we're running around the tunnel. They're going to kill us. We're going to, you know what quiets her down is a Birkin. Honey, don't worry about it. We have everything under control. Let me come. Come here, take a little look at the gift. You heard the Birkin bag like Kardashian? It's for you. That's my best Sinwar. I don't really know, how to do Yaya Sinwar. But these are families like anyone else. Yes, of course, people, we disagree with the things that they do. But it's a family. She is needling him. You think it's easy to be the head of Hamas? But it's not. Can I make a point? It's not your wife. The wife is not always on. She's not always. What her name is Samar Muhammad Abu Zamar. She's probably not always on the same page with him. You have to give the women little trinkets and things. This is not new. She's barking. She's angry. She's in the tunnel. There's no woman that's happy in the tunnel. She's not thrilled in the tunnel. I wouldn't be thrilled in the tunnel. So she's in there with the Burke, and he said, take your bag in there. Take your bag. Because when we win, because he's got to pretend that's going to happen, even though they're kind of outmatched. When we win, I want you to remember the good things. Take your Birkin in the tunnel, because when we win, we're going to come out in a Birkin, and then they go to heaven and get 7,000 Birkins or whatever. I don't know what he's telling her. I don't know what their version of the virgins is, women. Maybe it's Birkins. The men get virgins, they get Birkins. This is highly, highly intellectual comedy. I don't know. All I'm saying is that I find it odd that I'm supposed to get angry at the financial decisions that people in Hamas make. I don't understand that I'm supposed to be angry that she's got a Birkin. I don't get it. Okay. I don't want to go through the doctrine of the Islam. I appreciate it, but thank you. I think this woman has every right to have a Birkin bag in her life. It's not like, I understand what they're trying to say. People are pointing this out and they're going, well, shouldn't they be, instead of taking this money and getting her a Birkin bag, shouldn't they be feeding the people? You could make that point about anyone with a Birkin bag. That point could be made about literally anyone with a Birkin bag. Literally anyone. Anyone, whether it's the Real Housewives of Hamas or some bitch on Madison Avenue or in Beverly Hills or in Aspen or wherever. I don't think the biggest problem with Hamas is that the guy's wife has a Birkin. It's just an odd framing of an issue. Can you believe she has a Birkin? They stay at the Four Seasons. I think it's a mid-level Birkin. It's, what is it, a Birkin 40?
Yeah.
32K. Yeah, it's not the highest. The ostrich Birkin is nicer. I think the alligator Birkin. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying this new thing that we're all doing, where like we have to judge the spending of people, like, you're gonna bomb them and kill them. So what does it matter what they have? What does it matter what they have, by the way? It's crazy. Do you know one of them had a Rolex? What is this where is this now going? We're auditing Hamas? Well, they don't spend the money. They're not spending the money in the right way. What is this? What are we doing? You killed most, aren't they all dead? You're killing everyone over there. I mean, I just don't understand. It's like it's a very strange thing that, like, the last couple of days and weeks, I've seen, like, this weird, strange, well, can you believe what they spend their money on over there? What? Wait, what? Wait, I don't understand. Oh, so that's why they're bad. What about the whole October set? You had me sold that they weren't great with the whole, what they did on October 7th. It doesn't matter that they have a Birkin. It certainly doesn't matter that they have a Birkin bag. That's not the issue. If you're going to say that they should be spending their money and not living in the lap of luxury and helping their people, you could make that case against most leaders in the world, including people that live in this country. You could easily make that case to a lot of people here. It's like this thing they did. Remember they did this, who was the guy that in Russia, Navalny? Navalny made that. You know, I've had friends say to me, these are smart people. The corruption, they say this with a straight face. They say it with a straight face. They go, we're having dinner, a little dinner. I'm usually having a protein and salad, little dinner. A lot of them are doing other things. And I go, listen, they go, the corruption in Russia is insane. I go, do tell. And they go, you got to see, Navalny, he did these YouTube videos about all of the houses that all the government officials own. I said, wow, that sounds crazy. Get in the car. Get in the car. I'll leave the money for the bill. Get in the car. I'm Navalny, and we're going on a tour. I know, it's in the nuts. So you're telling me Putin's cronies all have big houses? Get in the car. Get in the car. I'm going to blow your mind. I'm going to blow your mind. We have a lot of beautiful homes here, and you're never going to guess who owns them. So what I mean to say is I'm not drawing them all. Oh, you're doing moral equivalency? Is that what you're doing? You're doing moral equivalency, so you're saying that we're Hamas. That's what you're saying. Do you know what would happen to you if you lived in Gaza? Yeah, I'd be in Hamas, and I'd be good at it. No. No. Do you know what would happen to gay people in Gaza? Do you know what happens to gay people? I don't go there. I'm sorry. Do you know what happening? I'm not saying Hamas is good or this is a good way to govern. I'm saying if you want to make this an argument about that they're irresponsible with the funds, that to me does not seem to be the argument. The argument is they committed an act of war and aggression against people. That's the argument. Say it ends there. Now, is the response proportionate? Not exactly. Not exactly. But that's the argument. They committed an act of violent aggression and war. It's true. The argument is not this bitch has got a Birkin and this one's got a Rolex and this one's got a fucking Hermes scarf. That's not it. That's not it. The argument is not Putin's cronies have big, has a Dacia and Sochi. It's not the argument. It's not the argument. Dummies. If you want to go to war with Russia, great. There's probably lots of reasons in your head you can justify going to war with any country. Then make it up. Iran. There's a big threat to America. It's Iran. This is the big thing now. Iran. We got to do something about Iran. What? Russia's more of a threat than Iran, and they're not a threat. Well, Iran says death to America all the time. Everyone says death to everyone. It doesn't matter. What are they going to do? What is Iran going to do? Invade America? Is that what you see happening? Iran has just landed in Colorado. The slopes are closed. Like, can we get serious here? We have a dearth of serious people in the country. Can anyone be serious for minutes? I'm not asking for an hour. Minutes. She's got a Birkin bag. It's $32,000. Shouldn't they have built a water treatment facility instead of living in luxury in Kentucky? Yeah. And they should have done it in Flint, Michigan. It's not the point. Don't go down this road. Boy, is that a bad road. Boy, is that not the road, huh? Not the road. Well, Putin's friends have big houses because they get government contracts and because it's corrupt and they have big houses. Okay, but the 10 wealthiest counties in America are the ones clustered around D.C. Huh. Why is that? We're different. Okay. I get it. It's a better we like it here better. I like it here better. I don't want to live in Russia. I don't want to live in Gaza. You got me. You got me, intellectual giants who would debate me. You've won. Correct. I do not want to live. In fact, here's how much I don't like those countries. I don't want our military there. And I'm not even in it. I'm not even in the military and I don't want them to go. Isn't that interesting how that works? Just because I don't like it. I don't like it so much, I don't want anyone going. Huh. Getting people to get pumped up about Iran is hilarious. It's like my favorite thing now is that it lies dormant in people, this need for like this enemy and the war and everything. And so apparently after what, we have a few months of overdose deaths being down, now we need to go fight Iran? Sydney Sweeney says her pursuit of fame likely caused her parents' divorce. You and me both, sister. The 27-year-old actress speaking with Glamour as part of its Women of the Year. And by the way, can we get rid of that? A Woman of the Year 2024 coverage detailed the difficult time frame after her family relocated from Washington to be closer to Southern California with her parents divorcing and going through a bankruptcy filing. In 2016, I knew I could never actually fail because, on a very broad scale, my family did lose everything. They did get a divorce. Whether or not that was part of coming here, it definitely was a catalyst for it. So I knew I had to succeed in some capacity so that it wasn't for nothing. What? What is happening? She said they asked her questions such as, when are you going to come home and stop dragging your family to a hell-ridden city? Well, correct about that. When are you going to stop breaking your family apart and wasting all their money and just go get a real job and have a real life? I don't understand. Wasn't she an adult when this happened?
Yeah.
So why are they following her to California?
Well, when she was really young, they were driving her like 38-hour round trips from the Washington-Idaho border.
Why do I care about this? This is my problem. What publication is this?
Your favorite.
The Daily Mail? Oh, I do like them. I don't get it. Listen, Sydney, let me speak directly to you. I want you to hear this from me. I don't care about this. I truly don't. I don't care about this. I feel bad for your parents. And I don't think it's all you. I truly don't. I think there's other issues at play. But more importantly, I don't believe your work has risen to the level to justify their divorce. At this point, I've enjoyed White Lotus. I think you did a great job on Euphoria, but it isn't the career that justifies the implosion of your family as of yet. So, honey, from me to you, back to the drawing board, couple more films, let's grab some gold, let's get an Oscar, let's take it to the next level. If you're going to say your career caused your parents' divorce, let's get something really under the belt. Let's put a few awards under the belt. No? Keep going, Sydney. You yourself can get a Birkin. Show the Birkin bag. We got to get serious. Traditions. That's what the holidays are all about. Let's start a new tradition and save a little bit of money. Okay, Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. You can earn on hundreds of items from groceries to toys to tech. The average Ibotta user saves $256 of real money per year. With Ibotta, you earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. So many times people ask me, they go, how do I save money? Should I curb my spending? I say, no, get money back with Ibotta. Changing your habits is hard. Most people don't do it. It's frankly a waste of time. What you should do is learn how to maximize getting your cash back with Ibotta. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for just trying out Ibotta by using the code TIM. Just register, use the code TIM to get $5. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use code TIM. There's no downside here. You earn cash. Oh, you spent a bunch of money? Oh, look, you got cash back. $256 a year. Think about that. I don't talk about it because it is something from my past that is very dark. This is what happened. I'll tell the story because, I'll be vulnerable. I was attending Nassau Community College. I was in a car with this guy named Kenny, who was fat. This guy Buns, who got amazing weed. He didn't really talk. He kind of giggled. He had great weed. We don't know what he did. And this other kid that was an Indian guy, I forget his name. And every day we would go to the mall and we would get high in the parking garage. And then we would walk through the food court and eat Ranch One chicken sandwiches or bourbon chicken, Haagen-Dazs. And can you get that up? Can you please make that bigger?
This one?
Yes, because that is a photo of me. That's a before and after photo of me, by the way. The left and then the right. Now, I was walking through the mall and the Abercrombie & Fitch person noticed me as I was eating a Ranch One chicken and cheese. And they said, would you stand here naked outside the store? And I said, why? And they said, well, because we think it would help sell the clothes. And I did it. And I was shot. The police shot me. They showed up and shot because it was a prank. I didn't realize. What's going on now? Everyone's mad at Abercrombie & Fitch because they were sexed. I'm sorry. I can't anymore. Do you realize, everyone, that we're just in a circle of stories? There's nothing new. It's sex, company sex trafficking, celebrity sex trafficking, fucking, the bitch in Hamas has a Tiffany's brooch on. Like, there's nothing new in the news. Kamala does a town hall where they ask her, 3-year-olds ask her questions and have to be, vetted first. Like, it's a circle. There's nothing new here. So what is this 80-year-old? He's so happy. Look how happy he is. He made it. Look at by the way, look at how happy this man is. That is not an argument for doing the right thing, is it? Can you fill us in here? What did he do? He trafficked
So he was doing the casting couch. He was
yes, of course,
having parties under the pretense of that they were model castings, and then they were having sex with them, and they were young men. It was all power dynamic exploitation.
It's the whole thing, isn't it?
He's got shorts on in court.
Yes, Ab Fitch. Wasn't there a documentary about Abercrombie and Fitch that kind of hinted at this, but it didn't fully go into it?
Yeah, the dark side of cool.
Can we play the trailer to the dark side of cool? Ab Fitch was like the cool brand in what, the early 2000s?
2005, yeah.
I never had a lot of Abercrombie and Fitch clothing, but the cool kids did. I got cool later on in high school. I was wearing Jenkos, and that was, part of the aesthetic. So let's watch the trailer here to the dark side of cool, Abercrombie and Fitch. I hope no one in Hamas is wearing Abercrombie and Fitch. It's too expensive.
I was escorted to the front doors of the bedroom. When
Same.
I entered that room, the door was closed behind me. My feeling of being in that room was an animal. I was not a human to any of these people. I was a body. I was being presented to someone to do what they wanted with.
I'm not trying to defend Abercrombie and Fitch. Here. But, unless this is brutal rape, I don't care. I'm going to tell you right, if this is hot guys being mad that they had to stand around their underwear, I don't care. This has got to be brutal rape. Brutal rape. This has got to be Hamas tunnel rape, or I don't care. I'm hoping it builds, because if it's just I felt like an object and I was hot, I'm a little tired of hot people not being happy with it and then lashing out at everyone else that they're being treated like object. You're an object. That's what you are, an object. I'm not saying that you have to be objectified. You don't have to. Here's great ways to not be objectified. Don't go outside. Don't get any of the benefits from being hot. But I'm just saying, I am very upset if this is R word. And it's not, or even sexual assault. The grabbing, no good. But if this is one of these, I'm mad that people thought I was hot, I'm going to lose my mind. This has to be Hamas tunnel R word. Go.
What happened to me changed my life.
What happened?
And not for the better.
What happened? Los Angeles, California.
I'm a journalist with the BBC, and I've been carrying out some research about
Hello.
the experiences of models.
Was you raped by Abercrombie and Fitch?
I've been investigating
I'm
the
from the
dark secrets in the
BBC.
US fashion industry.
Did anybody try to rape you? Did you know the lady in Hamas has a Birkin? I don't have a Birkin.
We all knew that.
At the heart of this secret
Hamas
was
works much harder than the BBC. Keep going, please.
the man behind one of the biggest fashion brands in the world.
It's probably the darkest experience I've ever dealt with.
He was viewed as a form of genius.
The modern-day founder of Abercrombie and Fitch, Mike Jeffries.
The head of a very powerful, very wealthy organization.
My investigation has taken me across the US.
By the time the men would have arrived, where were they going to go? I mean, how easy could it have been to have left?
Speaking to men who say they were exploited and abused.
Yes. Are you rolling?
Take one. I think he's a deviant. I think he's a predator. And I don't think that's what the public has seen.
I was overwhelmed. I've never seen anything like this.
What I'd like to talk about is being lied to, tricked, and traded like a commodity.
Me Too has empowered women to speak out about sexual abuse. Now these men say they want to be heard too.
I think it's rarely considered that men could be a victim of anything.
They face a double stigma, and I don't think that men have quite had their Me Too movement.
All right, well, hey, listen, that's the Abercrombie doc. Anyone being sexually assaulted, raped, exploited in any way is not ideal. And this gentleman here doesn't seem innocent, but he was arrested because they were doing very bad things, right? This was not good. This was Epstein-like. They were trafficking people.
Yeah, but just parties all over the world.
Parties all over the world, trafficking people. Does no one I'm just asking a question. And again, let's say I'm the defense attorney. Do you not understand you're getting on a plane, you're going somewhere? Like, do you not understand what's about to happen? I guess not, because maybe you think you're modeling for Ab Fitch. Maybe they're just not being honest with you. They're lying to you. They're going to come here to this model party and be a model. And then you get there and they're like, it's actually an orgy. That's probably what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. That's not good. Here, let's read some of this article here. Where is he, Palm Beach?
Yeah. Yeah. He posted $10 million bond too, yeah. Yeah, he walked out without a care in the world.
80-year-old accuser is accused of wielding power, wealth, and influence to traffic male models for sexual pleasure across more than a decade while he ran the fashion powerhouse, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York. I think we just get rid of fashion, to be honest. Let's get enough of that. Get rid of this modeling thing. John Luke Brunel was Epstein's guy, was into the models. It's all the models. It's all the models are always getting trafficked. You know who's not getting trafficked? My friends who work at pizzerias and bars. They're not getting trafficked. Let's cut out the modeling. How about that? Yeah, this is all very gross stuff that unfortunately people had to endure, and we try not to make light of it, of course, even though we just did for several minutes, and we'll continue to throughout the rest of the episode, and then also for the rest of the weeks, months, and years that I'm on the air. But this is also a disclaimer to say that we don't agree with any of the behavior by any of the people involved in Abercrombie and Fitch. The CEO, the CFO, or any of the handlers, the people who recruit. I just, I'm a little bored of it, and I'm not trying to shit on anyone here. I'm just a little. Every other week, it's this. Everyone's apparently trafficked. I'm the only one in the country who hasn't been trafficked, by the way. Everyone's been trafficked 5 times, and I'm a little bored. And I'm not denying these men and their experiences, and I'm not denying their justice. I'm saying that I feel like every week I have to react to the same 5 stories. And it's like a documentary from some 90s show we all watch, and it's like, these kids were kept in a cage. They were fed like dogs. And you're like, God damn it. Clarissa explains it all. Well, explain this. Explain the rape. And I'm like, can we please not ever, Boy Meets World, Boy Meets Rape. And it's just, I'm upset. I don't like it. Put him in jail. Throw away the key. I'm just saying, as a broadcaster, it is the constant. The constant here. What about DXL, the fat store? Are they trafficking anyone? Or they're trafficking people? What about get DXL up to fat store? Go to DXL.com. What if I was trafficked by DXL? There it is. Get that up. They're getting trafficked. Who's trafficking them? The fit you deserve. Damn right. What a sad logo, huh? The fit you deserve. What about them? Are they not being trafficked? Why don't we look into that? We look into the DXL fat store trafficking. I was brought into the back room. I felt like an object. I did see DJ Khaled once at Rochester Big and Tall in Beverly Hills, which they closed down. Rochester Big and Tall was the high-end DXL, and then they closed it down. They closed down. Legal U.S. betting markets on things like the election or on anything, Kalshi. Go to Kalshi.com.
Monday, after this video sent to us by ABC 30 insider Ryan Atterbury went viral. The video shows Principal Robert Nunes dancing with the school's mascot. He's initially seated in a chair as the mascot dances in front of him. Then Nunes is seen firing a confetti cannon before trading places with the mascot.
Like he came.
Many are calling the
Like he came. Who wants to be principal of that shit school? Where is that school?
Like Fresno area?
Yeah, it's a dump. No one wants to do that job. Of course he's a deviant. I mean, who wants to do that?
So Fresno kids should see this?
Listen, I'm not saying Fresno kids. If you think Fresno kids haven't seen worse than this, you're out of your mind. If you think Fresno kids have a shot on this planet, you are out of your mind. And I don't mean to be negative, but every one of those kids, it's going to be a nightmare for all of those children, regardless of what the principal did. Fresno kids, that principal lap dance where he fake comes with the cannon is going to be the high point of these people's lives. It's going to get much worse. Well, I mean, it's clearly inappropriate. Is it inappropriate enough where he should not be allowed to be a principal of this failing school? I don't know. You know, that's the real question, right? The real question is like, should he be allowed to get his job back? And a high school principal in Atwater, he moves to lower position.
So this is him.
lower position.
So they just made him assistant principal instead.
So he's the assistant principal.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are they going to do? You know who's now the principal? The guy who was the janitor. They don't care. It's Fresno. He's associate principal.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like when Putin stepped down and he brought in Medvedev. Like, you know? I mean, this isn't anything. Grey's Anatomy writer faked cancer and multiple tragedies. Good for her. No problem with that. Elizabeth Finch. I don't care. I don't care at all that she lied. It's a corrupt business, Hollywood, and there's a lot of liars. Good for her. I don't care. She faked cancer. I mean, there's a whole plot of a show with our friend Ryan Phillippe and Megan Mullally and really Vanessa Bayer. Very funny. I forget what it's called. It's about QVC. It's really, really good. And I saw it. And I enjoyed it. And the whole point of it is somebody who fakes cancer to get a job at a QVC. I love that for you. TV series. A lot of fun. I think it was one season.
Yeah.
I don't think they're doing anything more. But I tell you, I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I thought it was really, really, really. I may rewatch it. I actually thought she's hilarious, by the way. I thought it was very funny. And that's the whole premise of the show is that you fake cancer to get the job, and then everybody found out. And I think it's very funny, and I like that it happens in real life. I like that people lie about things like that, and I like that they get ahead for it. Because guess what? The people at Grey's Anatomy don't deserve better. The executives at Grey's Anatomy do not deserve better. Okay? They don't deserve better than to be lied to by this bitch. My friend changed her name to Rodriguez to just get work because she wanted to pretend she's Hispanic. Not a Hispanic bone in her body. She just said, my name's Rodriguez now. You want to get woke? My name's Rodriguez. And it kind of worked. So, whatever. Gaddafi's grandson poses with his famous green book, but people are confused. He's a steampunk. Mm-hmm. Let's get this photo of Muammar Gaddafi's grandson. I mean, oh boy. I mean, here's the thing. You just can't, you never know which way the kids are going. You just don't know which way the kids are going. You can do everything for your kids and it can turn out this way. You know, thank God Ismail Haniyeh's family was martyred because can you imagine that leader of Hamas who a few years, he's got the kids in a Burning Man costume? She's got a Birkin bag. They're not buying food for people. They're buying Birkin bags, and they're staying in nice hotels. I mean, do I look? How dumb do we all look? They have houses on the beach. They've given up on the citizens. They're just trading amongst themselves. They're building wealth amongst themselves, and they've given up on the infrastructure of the country. These people are uniquely evil. They stay in nice hotels. They have Birkin bags. And yet no one has health care or food. Interesting. They are different. I don't know anymore. Sydney Sweeney. Enough. I've had enough. I'm so excited. People don't realize part of the decline of the American empire, the decline of Hollywood, and the inability to craft a narrative and shape public opinion. The internet moves so quickly. And the inability of Hollywood to act as the myth-making capital of America is going to have a big effect going forward. It's going to be interesting. That's It's one of the effects I think people really don't talk about when they talk about the decline of the traditional distribution methods, film, TV, things like that. Very controlled, tightly controlled distribution methods for the art and content and whatever that we made. And a lot of that was incredibly instrumental with crafting the narratives that people in this country believed about major events, war and peace, about economic realities, all of that stuff. The inability to do that and the fact that it has now been replaced by algorithms, by social media apps, by, DIY content that's uploaded, millions of hours of it every hour and all that stuff. And the inability to control it is going to be one of the least talked about but most important results of the decline of the traditional power structures in Hollywood. You're not going to be able to as easily tell people what to think about something. That's going to be interesting. There's going to be 7 documentaries made on YouTube before you make this movie that no one watches about the thing. You're going to make the movie that no one watches about said event. There's going to be multiple documentaries. And I'm not saying I'm not claiming to know the veracity of those documentaries. They could all be crazy people. I don't know. I'm just saying that tightly controlled top-down narrative sculpting that Hollywood did since its inception has now and is completely in tatters. People do not watch. Young people do not care. This is not where they're getting their information. Look at across the board, podcasts have become incredibly influential in terms of the dissemination of information. More people are being entertained on TikTok and YouTube than going to movies. It's not even close. It's not even close. A lot of people are getting information from alternate sources. So, Hollywood is not going to be, it's not in that business anymore. So it's very interesting. That's one of the people don't really talk about that. People don't really discuss that side of it because they don't really want to admit that that's been what's going on. They don't want to say that. They don't want to be like, well, another interesting thing is how are we going to lie to you people anymore? That's not what they want to say. But just zooming out, you go, that is a kind of an interesting. Kamala mentions Jimmy Carter's public appearance as why everyone can vote. VP Harris says if Jimmy Carter can vote, you can too, because Jimmy Carter is a very old man. Now, wait a minute. What is the video under her playing?
So this was the Jimmy Carter being wheeled out after his 100th birthday.
No, that's not Jimmy Carter.
No, here, I'll show you the full one. It's kind of crazy. He shouldn't be outside.
Yeah, but what is that? What was the one under that? It was just some random.
No, this is him. So this is Jimmy Carter.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago, they wheeled him out in Georgia.
He looks fine.
Take it in.
He's having a nice day. He's voting?
Yeah.
He's voting. So their argument is that he's voting. Someone's going to vote for him, no?
Well, his grandson said that he was excited to vote. He said, I'm excited, but more excited to vote for Kamala in November.
He doesn't seem to be excited for much, and I think that's a lie. I think his grandson's lying, and I don't think he's excited to vote for much. Let's play this.
So look, if Jimmy Carter can vote early, you can too.
You can too. Oh my God, that's the demo right there for her. That old guy sitting there. I don't understand. Poor Jimmy Carter. I don't understand why he's enthusiastic about much. He doesn't seem to be excited about much. He seems to be. He's slowed down a bit. Can we say that? He seems to have slowed down a bit. Not his old self. But I'm glad he's excited. Let's go to the polls. Go to the polls. The election is near. The election is near. Go to the RCP Real Clear Politics averages. Let's see where everybody stands. It's election day in America. RCP, read out the polls. Where are we? Trump is ahead in every poll?
Whoa. Yeah. RCP. Trump 219, Harris 215, toss-ups 104, 312, 226 in the no toss-up stage.
Go up to the battleground polls. Trump is ahead in every single battleground poll. Wow. Interesting. He's ahead in every single one. Well, they did a great job with her. I think they did a great job with her campaign. I like that it didn't have a message or a policy. And I said that months ago when she came out. There was not one policy they focused on. There was no Obamacare. There was no I'm running because I want health care. I'm running to build a wall. I'm running for that. There was not. It was vibes. It was fun. It was I love you. You love me. History. Making history. Now, this doesn't mean she will necessarily lose, but I would not. She's behind in every poll. It's not great.
That's what it appears so, yeah.
According to the good people at RCP. But a lot of them are within the margin of error. To be fair, all of them are almost in the margin of error, right?
Yes.
But he is up in every single one.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, interesting. We'll follow it closely. We'll do the reporting. We're doing the reporting by looking at polls for several seconds, not verifying them, and telling you what they are on YouTube. We're doing the reporting. I'm more interested in what kind of Birkin that bitch in the tunnel had. That's the real story. TimDillonComedy.com if you are looking to see me live. Let me read out the dates. Orlando, Chicago, Illinois. We've added a second show at Des Plaines, Illinois at the Rivers Casino. The good people.
and welcome to the Halloween Spooktacular edition of New World Next Week. I'm your co-host, James Corbett of the Corbett Report.
Putting the gore in the Corbett, and I am indeed James Evan Pilato from the frightening Media Monarchy Kingdom, and this is New World Next Week, episode 570, which is kind of scary right there, James. Whatever the motivation behind this incident, there's no justification for any attempt to disenfranchise voters, and we have got that story, plus Bricks dropping a manifesto, but first, hey, turns out plants crave even more than we thought. Oops, science was settled till it wasn't. Plants absorb 31% more CO2 than thought. Grabbing this from What's Up With That, a new study reveals that plants have been absorbing 31% more CO2 than previously believed. 31%, not 3 or 1, a glaring error that casts serious doubt on the climate models, emission scenarios, and policy prescriptions like the deadly net zero. For years, we were told that the science is settled, and this isn't even getting into their MAGA jabs and COVID vaccines, and that urgent action was needed to avoid catastrophic warming. But this discovery suggests that our models have been dramatically underestimating Mother Nature's ability to manage CO2. This revelation not only upends the rationale behind aggressive policies, but also raises broader questions about the supposed certainty of climate science. Even the phrase, settled science, has been the bedrock of climate advocacy for decades, really, of course, all kicked in the last 4 to 8 years. We've been told that if we don't make rapid, costly, dangerous, deadly changes, we'll face imminent disaster. I'm pretty sure Time magazine and Greta said we'd already be dead by now. Skeptics treated as heretics, while the so-called consensus was portrayed as unquestionable. James, quick sidebar. Have you noticed how quickly Greta fell from grace when she dared criticize occupied Palestine? Holy crap. I hope that's probably a huge lesson for her, going, I'm learning things about the way the world works. Continuing. It turns out we were 31% wrong about something as fundamental as CO2 absorption. This isn't a minor correction. It's a massive revision that undermines the credibility of the models driving the policy. Climate models are the tools used to predict warming and guide the policy. They've been treated as specific scripture. I like that. Driving policies from emissions reductions to renewable energy mandates, but with a key assumption proven wrong. The model's projections are called into question. Climate models predicted rapid CO2 buildup, assuming limited natural absorption. Policies driven by these models were never proven to be beneficial in the first place, but were only assumed to be so. The discovery that plants are absorbing significantly more CO2 undermines the supposed need for extreme measures. And in other weather news, mysterious record methane surge since 2020 was not fossil fuels, but 90% due to microbes. 150 nations signed the global methane pledge without bothering to check if all that methane was man-made. We shut down the modern world for the scamdemic. And hey, what happened? Methane levels rose even more. It seems that blaming fossil fuels for the global surge in emissions, but forgot to check the C13 isotopes, James. We spend millions breathalyzing cows, the deadly cow farts, measuring their burps and farts, feeding them seaweed, but didn't think to do the basic chemistry. How could that be? Because as the joke now goes, they told me to follow the science, but all I found was the money. Gaps and inconsistencies up to $41 billion in World Bank climate handouts. Unaccounted for, new report finds. It's like all that COVID money, or maybe Obama and Eric Holder's, Fast and Furious guns. I don't know where they went. $41 billion of the funds distributed to climate causes by the World Bank between 2017 and 2023 are unaccounted for due to poor accounting standards, this according to an audit from Oxfam. The enormous sum represents almost 40% of the climate funds the bank dispersed during these last tribulational 7 years, with World Bank data failing to show the recipients or the uses of the money. You'd think at least maybe one of them would make you feel a little okay. The bank's quick to brag about its climate financing billions, but these numbers are based on what it plans to spend and not what it actually spends once the project gets rolling. So says Kate Donald, head of Oxfam International's Washington, D.C. office, with the great takeaway quote, "This is like asking your doctor to assess your diet by looking at your grocery list and not looking at what ends up in your fridge." That's aspirational versus operational. James, settled science, methane pledges, and climate handouts.
Well, James, this is one of those rare instances where I, as a color commentator here on New World Next Week, I really don't know what else to say to add to these stories other than to say, if you do not understand the significance of these three stories put together and the narrative that they're putting out there, then you're probably one of those people who emailed me years ago to say, I thought you were a credible person, but then you started talking junk about climate science. Oh, you're one of those woo-woo weirdos. I'm never listening to you again. Now, to be fair, I haven't had a lot of those emails in recent years, and I think that's because finally it has cottoned on, the public has cottoned on to the idea that after the scamdemic, exactly as you say, yeah, I followed the science, but all I found was the money. Yeah, how could science possibly be corrupt? How could there possibly be any corruption amongst these scientists and researchers who float on clouds and only care about the truth? Well, now people are finally starting to question the big pharma science, and I think that means that they can't pretend that they don't understand the concept of flawed climate science anymore. In the same way that, as I've always said, one of the key things that the 9/11 Truth Movement actually accomplished was, at the very least, to wake the public up to the concept of false flag terrorism. People don't ask, why would the government attack itself anymore? Because it's very obvious why they would do that and blame it on their political enemies in order to start wars in the Middle East or what have you. Why would climate scientists possibly lie about or fail to connect the dots or fail to measure the isotope of methane that's actually being released? Does this have anything to do with agriculture? No? Oops. Oh well. But exactly as I mentioned on the Unlimited Hangout podcast the other day, I'm holding my breath for them to say, okay guys, you don't have to eat the bugs anymore. Doomsday has been called off, because it turns out we were completely wrong. Oh, actually plants absorb 31% more CO2. Oh, actually the methane is not coming from agriculture, it's coming from microbes. No, they're not going to call off Doomsday, because it is always Doomsday, because that is how they get their payday and all of the controls that come along with that. So that is what this climate science is about. Anyway, I said I have nothing to add, but I guess I always have something to add.
I would assume they'll fail forward. If at worst they'll admit, oh, I'm sorry, your government failed you. Give us more power and control, and we swear the rules and controls will be more dialed in next time. That's how we get started on New World Next Week, episode 570. Our second story, BRICS just dropped a manifesto for the New World Order. Grabbing this from our friends at activistpost.com. James and I noticed you were like 2 or 3 of their related recent stories on the sidebar. This week's Kazan Declaration suggests that the BRICS, in its expanded composition, is ready to open a new chapter in its history. Never before have such voluminous documents been adopted as a result of the group's summits. Now, James, test me here. Is it Brazil, Russia, India, China, Spain?
South Africa.
South Africa. Oh, would have put my money on Spain. Okay, thank you. Moreover, the Kazan Declaration will be the subject of great interest in the world's political and academic circles, as well as the subject of criticism of opponents of BRICS. For the first time, the group's unified vision of the current state of the international system is set out in detail. The Declaration, a voluminous document containing 134 paragraphs, some of which are quite long, which might not sound that bad, but compared to what they've done before. The statement adopted at the previous summit in Johannesburg in August 2023 was only 93 paragraphs, and the document adopted in Beijing in July 2022 was 75. So, of course, it keeps building. And they don't think it's mission creep. Thus, year by year, the outcome has become increasingly detailed and is now customary to say substantive, reflecting the gradual increase in the intensity of the group's engagement and the broadening of the substantive scope of its multilateral cooperation. The Kazan Declaration consists of a preamble and 4 sections dealing with strengthening multilateralism, global and regional security, financial and economic cooperation, and humanitarian exchanges. For the first time in BRICS history, the declaration sets out in detail the group's shared vision of the current state of the international system, the common or overlapping approaches to the fundamental global problems of our time and to acute regional crises, and the contours of a desirable and achievable world order as the members of the group currently see it. The details of the plan have been altered. Pray they don't alter it any further. Would you like to know more, James?
I would. Where can we possibly find out more? Oh, I know. Okay, how about instead of going, because as astute listeners and readers out there will know that our activist post article is one of these rah-rah BRICS are changing. They're bringing in the good New World Order kind of articles. But the antidote to that, of course, comes from Edward Slavsquat at the Edward Slavsquat Substack. Would you like to know what the BRICS Declaration is all about? Well, yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon because when you read, and I've read several of these rah-rah BRICS are saving us from the evil globalist type articles about this Kazan Declaration, but interestingly, not a single one of them actually links to the Kazan Declaration. I wonder why they don't want you to actually read it for yourself. Anyway, we will do that. We'll put that in the show notes so that people can go and actually read it for themselves. Don't take my word or anyone else's word for it. But when you do so, you will find out, as Edward Slavsquat points out, oh boy, all of these people writing about how this declaration is a double death blow to the globalist guys. And yet they don't quite quote from it. Like, for example, quote. Again, this is a quote from the Kazan Declaration. We stress the universal and inclusive nature of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its Sustainable Development Goals. Or, quote, we note the important role of multilateral development banks and development finance institutions, ... in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Or, quote, we reiterate that the objectives, principles, and provisions of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, its Kyoto Protocol, and its Paris Agreement, blah, 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 must be honored. We will strengthen cooperation on a whole range of solutions and technologies that contribute to the reduction and removal of greenhouse gases. Quote, we recognize the important role of carbon markets as one of the drivers of climate action and encourage enhancing cooperation and sharing experiences in this field. Or, quote, we reiterate our support to the central coordinating role of the World Health Organization in the implementation of multilateral international efforts to protect public health from infectious diseases and epidemics, and commit to reform and strengthen the international pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response system. Or, quote, recognizing the importance of creating an enabling, inclusive, and secure digital economy and the digital connectivity is an essential prerequisite for digital transformation, as well as social and economic growth, we emphasize the need to strengthen cooperation among BRICS countries. We also recognize that emerging technologies such as 5G, satellite systems, terrestrial and non-terrestrial networks have the potential to catalyze the development of the digital economy. All right, etc., etc. So as Slavsquat goes on to point out, the theme of this year's BRICS Summit was strengthening multilateralism for just global development and security. I think we all understand why BRICS chose this theme, because it's very meaningful and profound. In sharp contrast, the G20, which includes the USA and many other unipolar satanic West nations, will be meeting next month in Rio de Janeiro to discuss building a just world and a sustainable planet. The contrast could not be more extreme, like day and night. So here's a little quiz that he ends you with. Which of these statements is from the BRICS Kazan Declaration? Statement A. We reaffirm our support for the rules-based, open, transparent, fair, predictable, inclusive, equitable, non-discriminatory, consensus-based, multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization at its core, with special and differential treatment for developing countries, including least developed countries, and reject the unilateral trade restrictive measures that are inconsistent with WTO rules. Or, Statement B. We express our support for actions aimed at reaffirming that a rules-based, non-discriminatory, fair, open, inclusive, equitable, sustainable, and transparent multilateral trading system with WTO at its core is indispensable. We support policies that enable trade and investment to serve as an engine of growth and prosperity for all, fostering a favorable trade and investment environment for all. Which is from the Kazan Declaration, and which is a literal G20 communique. Because spoiler, they're one or the other, and Could you tell from those statements which is which? Nope, because they're the same thing. It's the old Office meme. Corporate wants you to tell the difference between these two pictures, G20 and bricks. No, they're the same. They're the same picture. Anyway, people who don't understand this yet, again, just aren't paying attention and are probably the types of people who still believe Putin's the savior and all of that nonsense garbage. I've talked about this at length before. I will link up my Truth About the Bricks editorial that I wrote years and years ago that's as relevant as ever. And James, you're exactly right. Trying to remember bricks. Why? What? Brazil? Russia? Why? Why South Africa? Precisely and solely, I guess you could have two reasons for that. One, because it's in Africa and they needed an African country. So South Africa, why not? But two, because BRICS is completely and totally a totally made up, dreamt up idea of economies that essentially have nothing to do with each other, governments that have nothing, no actual linkage between them, except, of course, the entire BRIC concept was dreamt up by Jim O'Neill. At, what bank was that? Goldman Sachs? Yeah. Look into the history of BRICS, where they come from, and what they are actually saying in their declarations, and lo and behold, meet the New World Order, same as the Old World Order.
James, I'm glad we will link up the actual information that is being discussed. I've always found that one of the neat things about the internet, you know, hyperlinks and such. So we've just been setting the table. Let's get lit now, you guys, with your Shocktober selection pre-show festivities underway in America. Police searching for person who set ballot boxes on fire in Washington and, of course, Portland, Oregon. With just days until Election Day, hundreds of ballots were destroyed by fires early this week at 2 drop boxes in the Pacific Northwest, and investigators are searching for a culprit they say is responsible for both. Many of the ballots in a drop box in Portland were unaffected, but hundreds of ballots were destroyed in a second ballot box fire in nearby Vancouver, Washington. Vancouver, Washington's just across the river. It's basically a suburb of Portland, Oregon. There are folks who live in the more affordable Vancouver, Washington, and then go work in the more lucrative Portland, Oregon. The incidents are believed to be related to a third incident earlier this month in Vancouver. Police worked to put out a ballot box fire in Vancouver, Washington. The incidents come as our good friends at Homeland Security have a bulletin from September that I guess they didn't want to share with us, so we had to get it from some watchdog group called Property of the People, which warned, quote, some social media users are discussing and encouraging various methods of sabotaging ballot drop boxes and avoiding detection, likely heightening the potential for targeting of this election infrastructure through the 2024 election cycle. Election infrastructure remains an attractive target for some domestic violent extremists, some of which aren't the FBI and Unit 8200 online ginning all of this up, and other threat actors with election-related grievances who seek to disrupt the democratic process and election operations, as we have been noted to do in countless nations around the world. Make no mistake, an attack on a ballot box is an attack on our democracy and completely unacceptable, the Oregon Secretary of State said Monday. Whatever the motivation behind this incident, there was no justification for any attempt to disenfranchise voters. This is interesting. An incendiary device was attached to the side of a ballot drop box when Portland police responded at about 3:30 a.m. this past Monday morning. Security personnel extinguished the fire. At a bus station in Vancouver, Washington, 15 miles away, a second ballot box was set on fire that same early Monday morning. Responding officers discovered a suspicious device smoking and on fire next to the box. All ballot boxes in Multnomah County, which is what contains Portland, Oregon, that's where we lived for over a decade, and Clark County in Washington, have fire suppressant installed, election officials said during a news conference on Monday. So it's got fire extinguishers rigged up inside it. Multnomah County Elections Director Tim Scott said fire suppressant inside the Portland box protected over 400 ballots inside, saying only 3 were damaged. However, election officials were still counting all the ballots involved in the Vancouver fire, but believe hundreds of ballots were destroyed. And if you can see the video, I mean, if you've ever scraped out your fireplace, it does not look real good for those ballots. Less than 1% of people in Multnomah County vote in person, James, and I know we've talked about this for the decades here in the New World Next Week Kingdom. My wife and I we would always do the vote by mail in Portland. It felt so much better because I can do my homework in advance and don't have to go to some booth. And then turns out maybe that's an even easier way to gin up and rig this process. In Clark County, 60% of the ballots received are from ballot drop boxes. So they'll put these boxes all around the city so you can go drop off your ballot days in advance, and they've already been tabulating things in America's Next Top Zionist 2024. In other tricks without treats, as U.S. election looms, Biden aides struggle with Middle East wars. It is not where the Brandon administration wanted to be. Less than a week before the U.S. presidential election, Israeli attacks with American-made bombs continue to wipe out Palestinian families in Gaza. The war in Lebanon's expanding. Israel and Iran's exchanges of direct attacks could escalate, with many progressive voters and Arab and Muslim Americans in battleground states furious at President Biden for his unwavering support of Israel's offensives since the devastating Hamas assault last year. U.S. officials had been desperate for some way to prod the Middle East towards stability. Then came Israel's October 16th killing of Sinwar. Sin war. James, I couldn't help but note for the Halloween season. Yes, war is a sin. You're right. 3 weeks before the election, Brandon dispatched Secretary of State and noted Epstein and Maxwell family associate Anthony J. Blinken to the Middle East for that purpose. And finally, gold prices hit record high amid election jitters, rate uncertainty. James, this affects us both. Gold prices hit a record high in Asian trade as safe haven demand was boosted by increased political uncertainty in the U.S. and Japan, as well as anticipation of more cues on interest rates. There had been a Fed rate cut here not too long ago. The yellow metal had a slow start as a less severe than feared attack by Israel on Iran pushed up some hopes of easing tensions in the Middle East. Yes, we thought Israel was going to be like real Holocausty like usual. They showed some restraint. Safe haven demand remained underpinned by anticipation of a tight 2024 presidential election with voting set for, remember, the 5th of November. Japan also added to the political uncertainty after a coalition led by the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, lost its parliamentary majority in a recent selection. James, U.S. and Japan, we're really coming together in these end times.
Indeed, and in fact, you've just hit upon my strategy that I'm going to employ for the next couple of weeks when people inevitably ask me about the selection. And what do you think about it, James? I am inevitably going to respond by going, oh yeah, the LDP lost its ruling coalition, and what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Ishiba will step down? Who do you think might replace him? Do you think the coalition will be able to, the opposition will be able to put together a coalition? Who do you think would lead that? And when people's eyes glaze over and they realize I'm talking about Japanese politics, and they'll be like, I don't know, who cares? And I'll go, exactly. But anyway, yeah, here we are. But, okay, so realistically, though, and if I was to dumb this down to a soundbite of some sort, I will dumb it down to a soundbite that will be incomprehensible to people who do not understand polysyllabic words. I would say not that the action is in the reaction, as I know we often point out here, and as you pointed out for many years, but the reaction reifies the action, which is to say, we know this selection sideshow circus is garbage, nonsense, distractionary. It will not change anything, for example, with regards to U.S. Zionist alliance, etc., etc. There's many, many ways that we have talked about in the past. It's meaningless, and your vote doesn't count anyway. The voting machines will tell you who won. But because millions and millions and millions of people truly believe in it and have invested their entire identity in this selection process and in their candidate, it makes that into something that will manifest in reality. And so whatever happens next week, it's going to spill out, and there's going to be, well, I can't imagine a scenario where there won't be mass protests and whatever, people losing their minds over, oh my God, the person I don't like just got into power. However did this happen? So whatever, again, the sideshow means nothing, but the fact that people believe in the show and will get violent and crazy about it, unfortunately, probably does have some ramifications. And at the very least, I suppose we'll have to cover that aspect of this. But anyway, yeah, U.S. selection. Okay.
James, the way you described it right there sounds like a horror movie ritual for a Shocktober. Hey, just think, in like a few short days, we'll all be fighting over who stole the election. That is New World Next Week, episode 570. NewWorldNextWeek.com has hoodies and toques because it's starting to get cold. It is getting chilly here. It snowed for a minute this morning. We have now still never not seen a first snow.
simply knowing the name of a person who pulled the trigger does not tell even a tiny slice of the story of this assassination and why is it important and how does it relate to the rest of the plot. And even more so because another stunning revelation in this book is that it was not the person, the sniper, who pulled the trigger who actually killed Martin Luther King Jr. Can you tell us about A, who pulled the trigger, and B, who actually killed MLK?
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee. Police have issued an all-points bulletin for a well-dressed young white man seen running from the scene.
Welcome, friends. This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. Today is April 25th, 2017, as I come to you, and of course that means we have just passed the 49th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. And whatever you think you might know about that assassination, even if you know that it was not the work of James Earl Ray, as we have been told almost since that day itself, you probably don't know the full story of that assassination unless you have been following the research, the work, the life's work, really, of Dr. William F. Pepper, and that almost 40-year investigation that he has conducted into the real truth about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. is encapsulated in this volume that I have in my hands, The Plot to Kill King, which I really don't even know how to articulate, how to commend it enough to your attention that you will go and read it. But suffice it to say, it is the book that you should have if you are interested in the plot to kill King and what really happened on that day. Let me start by welcoming him to the program. Dr. Pepper, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today.
It's good to be with you, Mr. Corbett.
Well, I'm in the unenviable position of attempting to encapsulate or summarize yourself, your work, for those who are unfamiliar with it, so I will cop out and simply read from the back cover of the book. Dr. William F. Pepper, Esquire, is a human rights lawyer most known for his defense of James Earl Ray in the trial for the murder of Martin Luther King Jr. and of Sirhan Sirhan in the trial for the murder of Senator Robert Kennedy. Pepper is the author of An Act of State and Orders to Kill, and he has been active in government cases, including the 9/11 Truth Movement, and in attempts to charge George W. Bush with war crimes. He was appointed as a barrister of the United Kingdom, but now primarily resides in New York City. And as I say, the book is The Plot to Kill King. I think we should start today probably by outlining your own interest in this case, because of course this is not simply a hobby horse for you, this is something that you have a personal relationship to. Tell us about your own relationship with Dr. King.
Well, I only knew Martin King the last year of his life. I met him when I returned from Vietnam. I was a accredited journalist, independent journalist in Vietnam, and met him subsequent to writing an article for Ramparts magazine, which was called The Children of Vietnam. Martin King was a subscriber to Ramparts, and he got that January 1st, 1967 copy of the magazine, which had that article in it, when he was going through his mail at the airport in Atlanta on his way to holiday in the Caribbean. And Bernard Lee, his bodyguard, said that, when he just scanned through it very quickly, he was taken aback by the photographs. I took numerous photographs of war-injured children, and he pushed away his food at one point, Bernard said, and said he could never enjoy a meal again so long as this war continued. And then he asked to meet with me, and I opened my files to him. We went from a sermon he gave at chapel at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. We rode together up to Open Vietnam Summer in Cambridge at Harvard. And when he saw the entirety of of the Vietnam atrocities and the crimes that his government was committing in that country against that ancient people, he openly wept. So that was how we met, and he said, "Please, stay with me, work with me on this. I'm going to come out against this war, obviously." And this was in early 1967. I guess I saw him for the first time probably in February of '67, and he delivered his anti-war speech at Riverside Church on April 4, a year to the day before he was killed. We agreed that I would put forward the idea of two things. One, a third-party ticket to run against Lyndon Johnson on a peace and freedom set of policies. And he and Dr. Benjamin Spock would be the candidates. And the second thing was that we would hold a national conference for new politics, the following autumn, Labor Day autumn in Chicago. And he asked me to be the executive director of that NCNP and to organize that convention, which I did. So that was the contact, and that was the early experience, and that was the work that we did. And he was determined to bring a massive number of Americans into Washington on the Poor People's Campaign. And they were not just going to march. This wasn't a march. They, in fact, were going to take up residence in the shadow of the Washington Memorial and visit their congressmen and senators and try to get monies put back into social programs that had been taken away because of the war. Not too different situation then than it is today, with the increase in the military budget by the Trump administration and the denial of funds for just about every social human program that keeps people alive, helps them to survive. And not only people, but the National Institute of Health and Sciences, which is being deprived of money, all in the shadow of militarism. So we've come full circle in a sense, but that was his concern, and he was going to bring 500,000 people to Washington to attempt to change that. And that and his opposition to the war, in my view, were the two reasons why they decided that ultimately they had to remove him from not just public life, but from life through assassination.
Well, you bring up the specter of the dreaded they, and when you refer to the plotters, obviously this was a plot to kill King, so there were plotters involved. But let's examine the official story that we've all been told about this, because it seems, to those who have never done any research into the assassination, to be a fairly open and shut case. We have James Earl Ray, the convicted career criminal, who, certainly motivated by hate, managed to escape from prison, Missouri State Penitentiary, in 1967, and eventually, somehow or other, traveled to Memphis, Tennessee. The details are murky depending on which history you're reading, and pulled the trigger and killed Martin Luther King Jr., an act to which he pled guilty in the trial. So it seems like a fairly open and shut case. How did you start to come to question that narrative, and how have we been misled by that official story?
Well, I think I was misled as well. I think we all have been misled. When Martin was killed, and the search went on for the alleged assassin, James Earl Ray, I thought they were after the right guy. I never did any research initially. I thought that the case was basically over, and then when they caught him and he switched lawyers, he had Haynes' father and son as his lawyers first, but then he switched them, and he brought on Percy Foreman, well-known and politically connected criminal lawyer. But I thought that as I said, that was the end of it. And then 9 years later, in 1977, in a conversation with Ralph Abernathy, he said, "Look, why don't you come with me up to the prison? We'll arrange for an interview with James Earl Ray, and I'd like you to interrogate him in front of me about his guilt and his crime and the killing of my friend." And I said to him, I said, "Ralph, what are you talking about? Don't they have the right guy? You have some questions that possibly Ray is innocent of this crime." He said, "I don't know, but I'd like to hear him answer thorough questions from the beginning to end about his involvement and see where it goes." Well, I said, "Well, okay, I'm willing to do that, but I'll need considerable time to prepare because I have not done any research on the case at all." This is 77, I guess it was late 77. 1978, I guess August, we finally went to the prison, to Brushy Mountain Penitentiary. And I spent 5 hours interrogating James Earl Ray and putting him through a very stressful ordeal. And present at that meeting was, of course, James's lawyer at the time was Mark Lane. Reverend James Lawson, who was Martin King's best friend and confidant in Memphis, Tennessee. I brought a psychiatrist from Cambridge, from Harvard, who was a body language focused professional, and his instructions were simply to sit back and watch the body movements of Ray as I put him through this very stressful ordeal. We came away from that meeting having no doubt that he was not the shooter who killed Martin King. What we didn't know, of course, was what role he might have played and how he could have actually been knowingly involved in the case. But he raised enough questions, at least in my mind, and I think in the minds of the others, that caused me quietly to start to go into Memphis, and privately and quietly, and in an effort to try to find the answers to some of what I saw were conflicts with the official story of his crime, and of course he denied vigorously that he had shot Martin Luther King. He indicated that the only reason he pled guilty was because he was under enormous pressure from his then lawyer, Percy Foreman, who insisted they would execute him if he didn't cop a plea and take a sentence of 99 years. But he said the main reason that he pled was that Percy said to him he was not in good health and could not give him a good defense. And instead, Percy said to him, "You plead guilty, and then you can attempt to withdraw your plea and get a new lawyer and seek a trial. And then beyond that, Percy said, and I will give $500 to your brother Jerry to pay a retainer fee for that new lawyer when you're ready to do it. An extraordinary event. In that Percy also wrote this. He wrote a letter. He wrote the letter making this commitment to James, and all of these factors caused Ray to agree to plead guilty, which he did. Meanwhile, I began in '78 to start conduct an investigation, which, as you say, has gone on for 40 years, and we have, I think, at this point, got the truth and have basically solved the case.
And just not to leave anyone hanging, we should make it clear that your investigation has shown that Ray really was not a willing, knowing participant in any of the events that were happening in Memphis that day, at least not in regards to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. But it's one of those stories that I think, like the story of Lee Harvey Oswald, once what we are expected to believe about this person is really interrogated, it starts to fall apart of its own accord, not only, as I alluded to, with the question of the motivation for this supposed assassination, the assassination blamed on Ray, that is, or the money with which he was traveling internationally during his time as an escaped convict, but some really remarkable details that I didn't know until I read this book, including this one, which I'll read here. You said that after being profiled for use as a scapegoat, James Earl Ray's, escape was arranged by the warden, who was paid $25,000 that was delivered from Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover, of the FBI, by Clyde Tolson, his second-in-command, and taken to the prison by their Dixie Mafia collaborator Russell Adkins Sr. Ray would never become aware of this high-level plot. That is absolutely mind-blowing information, that his escape from the penitentiary in 1967 was actually arranged by the FBI. Can you fill us in on the details of that?
Yes, well, Hoover, some while earlier, had asked the Commissioner of Corrections for the state of Missouri, where James was incarcerated, to come up with a prisoner who was effectively docile, passive, someone who could be used for as a patsy in a killing of this sort, without disclosing, of course, who the victim was to be or anything of that sort. So they did profile him, and they did profile prisoners, and they came up with James. Now, James, it's important to understand, was always he was a non-violent character. His incarceration was for more or less for petty crimes. And he had no facility with a weapon at all. I think he fired a .22 when he was about 14 years old or something like that. But he had no experience with a weapon. When he was in the Army, he did take rifle training and was mediocre at best. But he had none of the tendencies toward violence. He also was he was not a racist, though he was characterized as being a racist. He was a poor white struggling guy who worked when he could work, and then when he lost a job in order to survive, he would go in and engage in petty burglaries and robberies, things of that sort, you know. And he was often his own worst enemy and ended up getting caught. So he was a very unlikely type for being a racist assassin, because when he used to work at one factory, he would end up shooting craps with a lot of his fellow workers who were black, and he got along perfectly well with them. There was no indication of racism on the part of Ray, and that came out. So he turned out to be an ideal candidate in terms of personality, and Hoover's number 2, Tolson, was a regular visitor to the Adkins family, who were a Dixie Mafia family, who worked with Hoover nearly as we could see, worked with Hoover on a very regular basis on a number of other matters that Hoover wanted taken care of. Tolson would come in, and he would carry instructions from the director, and he would carry money to pay off informants and local people who were cooperating with them. So he was a very regular visit, very well known. Our chief witness in these matters was the son of Russell Adkins, Ron Tyler Adkins, who was involved by his father, who sat in on meetings, who often brought the coffee and donuts in, and he would hear everything that was going on. And he actually rode to the prison with his father when they delivered the $25,000 that Hoover had sent in with Tolson. So that's that's a shocking detail, but it shows the degree of longevity and collaboration in the plot to kill Martin King once that decision had been made.
And again, there are many, many details like that I found just amazing and mind-blowing. But another one with regards to Ray and his time as an escaped convict was his use of an alias, a very particular alias, Eric S. Galt, especially during his time in Canada and in Mexico. Tell us about Eric S. Galt and how he came to start using this alias.
Well, he was given the alias. The interesting thing about James is he was not what you might call a rat. He wouldn't, if he thought someone was trying to help him, he was not going to get that person in trouble, and that was the nature of James. He would never reveal who gave him the name of Eric S. Galt. Now, Eric Galt was a senior official at Union Carbide in Canada, and in charge of their warehouse and in charge of their military equipment and arranging for the shipping of that equipment to places like Israel. Union Carbide in Canada was used for that purpose. And Galt had security clearance. It was a very good alias for them to give James because he was an escaped convict. And as they had him out, moving him around and in preparation for his ultimate utility, if he ever got picked up, they'd be able to make it go away very quickly. He had a protected alias in a sense with Eric Galt as his name. So that was another aspect of the planning that shows the detailed concern. And military intelligence, who worked very closely on this, and I'm sure on other matters, with the FBI and with Hoover, was responsible for selecting the particular identity and facilitating it. John Downey was the head of the 902nd Military Intelligence Group. That was the only MiG that was based in the capital area, and in fact, one of Downey's senior officers had visited Galt not long before this alias was given to James. James received the alias when he was early on the run in the summer of 1967.
It really is remarkable that, again, we're expected to believe that this rather bungling burglar would not only escape penitentiary with the help of the FBI, but somehow randomly alight upon this alias that just happens to be that of someone with high-level security clearance that would have any investigation or any unwanted investigations by the police squashed, because this is someone high up. It's again, it beggars belief if that is what we are expected to believe unproblematically. But as you allude, of course, this alias was given to James Earl Ray by someone who he was not going to name himself. Which brings us to some of the shadowy characters that were was specifically one by the name of Raoul, who was shepherding him through this time towards Memphis in 1968. Let's talk, if it is your assertion that James Earl Ray did not pull the trigger on Martin Luther King Jr., where was he at the time that Martin Luther King was assassinated? What was he doing?
Well, actually, at the time of the assassination, he had left the rooming house area where Raoul had told him to take a room. He took a room and was instructed to leave his travel bag up in the room, and then to go away, because that room was actually used as sort of a sojourning place for the assassination team. So he went down to the car, the white Mustang that he had also been paid for by Raoul when he met him for the first time up in Canada. Raoul offered to get him a car if he would do some errands. They wanted to keep him on a string. And so he went back down to the car and remembered that there was a flat spare tire in the trunk, and he thought, well, I better have this repaired, because if Raoul wants to use the car and if he has a problem and he has a flat spare, he says, I'll really be in trouble. So he drove to a local gas station where he was when he heard the sirens of the ambulance coming to the Lorraine after the shooting. So he was outside. He was away from that entire area, and we know this because we found statements from two eyewitnesses who left Jim's grill, almost in front of which he was parked, and they saw him drive away, and they identified this lone driver in the white Mustang because he made a right turn on a street called Vance, which was a couple of blocks up the road, up Main Street. When they exited Jim's grill, they saw the car, they noted it, and then they saw it driving past them. In fact, one had to pull the other out of the way as the car made the right turn onto Vance. And we found those two statements given to the Memphis Police Department in the bottom of a file drawer, like deeply buried in the file materials on the case, never turned over to the defense counsel, and never used. But that's where James was. He was trying to get that tire fixed, and then when he couldn't get it fixed because it was going to be too long a wait, he decided that he would go back down there. He was to have left the car for Raoul. But as he went back around and was coming up on Main Street, he saw the police were everywhere. And so he just then decided to take off and not obviously not go back to that area where the crime had taken place. And so he took off, and then he drove straight to Atlanta. It was going to be his intention as it had been, to get out of the country and to figure a way to leave. So that was put into motion, and he only learned about the assassination later.
Now, the obvious question, and the one that everyone would want answered, is the question, who actually pulled the trigger? And remarkably enough, you not only have the name, but you actually had the chance to interview that person, the transcript of which is in one of the appendices of this book itself. Another very important reason that people should get this book. But I think, like the JFK assassination or many other events, simply knowing the name of a person who pulled the trigger does not tell even a tiny slice of the story of this assassination and why is it important and how does it relate to the rest of the plot. And even more so because another stunning revelation in this book is that it was not the person, the sniper, who pulled the trigger who actually killed Martin Luther King Jr. Can you tell us about A, who pulled the trigger, and B, who actually killed MLK?
Yeah, that's an astounding revelation, frankly, and it floored me when I came upon it. The man who pulled the trigger, in my view, and with whom I invited to lunch, was a fellow from the former Memphis Police Department police officer named Frank Strauser. He was the best shooter on the force, and in every way a virulent racist. I had to pay Frank $500 to sit down with me at what was going to be a lunch, but he refused to eat. But nevertheless, we talked, and when I indicated that he had been named by Lloyd Jowers, who was involved in the plot, and who was out there in the bushes and took the gun from the shooter, that he had been involved. He had been named by Jowers. He said he couldn't understand why Jowers would name him, and of course he denied it. And but he told different stories as to where he actually was at the time, and so he was his memory was uncertain as to what he was actually doing. And I had known about Strauser for a number of years because a janitor at the rifle range of the police department named Lenny Curtis saw him practicing with a specially delivered rifle all day, the day of the shooting, and had, in the background of that, had heard him make comments that King's going to get his head blown off and things like that, and very derogatory racist comments. So Lenny saw him practicing all day, and then saw him leave with the rifle at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and had no doubt that he was going to do what he did do. He was going to participate in the assassination of Martin King. Lenny tried to communicate that to someone, but couldn't get a hold of he was trying to call a preacher whom he knew, couldn't get a hold of him, and just finally had to give up. In subsequent weeks and months following the assassination, they became very suspicious. The shooter became very suspicious of Lenny, and used to appear outside of his house in an unmarked car, and Lenny saw a V, like a rifle nest, pointed into his kitchen from the back window. And once, when he was entering the house, he was about to light a cigarette, and he he smelled gas, so he quickly put it out. Someone had turned on the gas in his house, and he happened to see on more than one occasion this same fellow surveilling him, and he was very concerned. And once he asked him, the shooter asked him to ride into town with him to the main headquarters to pick up some salary checks, and they took a shortcut, or a long cut, I guess it was, through a wooded area, and he started pumping him about who he thought killed King, and was Ray really guilty, and all of that. And Lenny, of course, played dumb and said, yes, of course he was. But he believed he was a marked man in terms of what he had seen and what he knew. I couldn't use the deposition of Lenny is also in the book. What I have done with this book is to put in the appendices all of the relevant sworn statements, depositions, transcripts of material, so that people could not say I've taken things out of context or misquoted or in some way twisted the truth. So that's why the book is as long as it is, because it has all of that factual information in it. But I couldn't use Lenny's story whilst he was alive, so I had to hang on to it for some years and not be able to release it, because I had no doubt they'd kill him, and so I just simply didn't use it. But that was the story of the actual shooter who went down the back stairs with his spotter and the back stairs of the rooming house out into the bushes and met Lloyd Jowers, whose job it was to take the rifle inside through the back door, the kitchen door, break it down, and hold it on the wraps until it was picked up. And Jowers, of course, was seen doing this by his long-term girlfriend, who stood at the door as he rushed in with the still smoking rifle, and him as white as a sheet, and watched him as he broke it down in front of her. And she didn't tell that story for many years. Remember, this was 1968, and I guess I finally got that from her 92, 93, when I had developed a compatible relationship with her, with a lot of these people too. And finally, she kept quiet all those years because she thought Lloyd was actually the shooter. Well, he wasn't actually the shooter, but he played a role that when we confronted him on it, he admitted it and allowed us to make him a defendant in a civil trial that we ran in 1999, where we had 70 witnesses over a 30-day period, and I represented the King family in that trial. The King family had come to support my work as early as 95, 96, when the first book, Orders to Kill, came out. And so they were determined to go forward, and we went forward, and the trial took 59 minutes for the jury to find for the King family against Jowers and government agents who were involved in the assassination. Anyway, I went astray a little bit, but that was the story. The shooter was in the bushes in the back area. He had his spotter. His spotter was a captain, also an excellent shot, and a captain in the Memphis Police Department named Earl Clark. And after the shot, Clark went down over the wall and ran north on the intervening street, Mulberry Street, and was seen getting into a police car and taken away. The fellow who saw him get into that police car was a taxi driver who had just pulled into the Lorraine Motel where Martin was staying, and he was to pick someone up, and he saw this man come out of the wall, run up the street, and get in the car. That man was killed that night by one of the Dixie Mafia's henchmen, because he obviously had seen too much, and so they got him out of the way. The single shot was fired. It hit Martin in the head, in the lower area of the face. It went down and actually nicked his spine and lodged in his back. Did not kill him. He was still alive, and he was taken to St. Joseph's Hospital and put into the emergency room, and he was being worked on in the emergency room. And that is where he was actually killed. What happened was, some weeks earlier, the head of neurosurgery at the hospital, chief surgeon named Dr. Breen Bland, who was, coincidentally or not, the family doctor of the Adkins family, the Dixie Mafia family. And he visited Russell Adkins Jr. Father had died by then, and Jr. was taking over the running of the assassination with Frank Holloman, who was the director of police and fire, and who had worked in Hoover's office for a number of years and was very trusted. Anyway, our witness, Rod Tyler Adkins, the boy, was then a teenager, was there when he heard Dr. Bland say, "Please make sure that if he's not killed instantly by the shot, then make sure they send him take him to St. Joseph's, so we can make sure that he doesn't leave there alive." Well, in fact, they were working on him in the emergency room, and Bland came into the room with two men in suits. And he said, I quote him directly in the book, he said, "Stop working on that nigger and let him die." And then he said, "Now get out of here, all of you." And he emptied the emergency room. And as she was going out, the surgical nurse, Shelby, heard them gathering saliva up in their mouths like that, and that caught her attention. She turned around, and she saw them then spit on the body, and she saw Bland take a pillow. The catheters had been removed. Take a pillow and put the pillow over Dr. King's head and face and suffocate him. And that is how he died. He was still alive. He might well have died ultimately from the bullet wound, but they were not going to take any chances. And that is how Martin King actually was taken from us.
Just when you thought that the story of the assassination of Martin Luther King couldn't get any more horrific, it gets positively ghoulish. Just another one of the remarkable revelations in this book. Let's give people a sense of the scope of this operation, starting with the operational side of it rather than simply the cover-up side of it. How many people were on the ground that day? How many teams? Where were they located? What is the size of this plot?
Well, there was, of course, the local Dixie Mafia operation that was coordinated by Russell Atkins Jr., Frank Holloman, the chief of police and fire, and orchestrated behind the scenes by Tolson on behalf of Hoover. So there was that FBI element that was there. there were 2 snipers and a spotter who were chosen by John Downey from a list of, and they came in from Camp Shelby, Mississippi, early in the morning. They were briefed at 4:30, and they came in early in the morning. We know this because 2 of them fled. One sniper and spotter, and actually two snipers fled ultimately to Mexico because they were afraid there was a cleanup operation going on, and they just left. And I had contact with them through a former naval intelligence officer who had written a piece in the Memphis. He was a journalist. Subsequently, wrote a piece in the Memphis Commercial Appeal and mentioned the fact that there was an 8-man sniper unit in Memphis at the time of the assassination, and that caught my attention. And so I beseeched him to make this contact for me, and he did. They wouldn't meet with me because at that point in time, after 1988, I became Ray's lawyer in 88 only when I became convinced he had no knowing role. I would see him in prison many times between 78 and 88, and he kept asking me to represent him, but I said I wouldn't until I was sure he had no knowing role. I became convinced of that in 88, took him on, took his case to the local federal district court, to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and then to the Supreme Court. We, of course, were denied all the way. Though I had been as Ray's lawyer, these guys would not meet with me, but they would meet with my intelligence informant. And they were there. They were in sniper positions with each sniper with a spotter, and they were shown the photographs of their victims at the 4:30 briefing at Camp Shelby. They were to hit 2 targets. One was Martin King, and the other was Andy Young. Strangely enough, that was a surprise too. But they feared Andy because he had a lot of credibility in the North and was a good fundraiser and all of that. So they were going to take out both King and Young at the same time. It turns out they were backups. They weren't needed, and they didn't fire. In fact, they were told to leave by the head of their unit as soon as the shot took place. They were leaving. On top of the fire station, 2 photographers, psychological ops guys, also put in place by John Downey, were on top of the station, and they were photographing everything that was going on the balcony, in the parking lot, and then in the bushes themselves, where they actually photographed the shooter. We tried to get the photographs for a long time, and ultimately failed because as we were dealing with one of the fellows who had moved to Costa Rica. My colleague, my naval intelligence colleague, made a mistake and used his own name when he traveled into Atlanta for the meeting, and he was on, of course, a watch list, and the FBI followed him. And as he was talking to this guy, one of the agents took out of the passenger side of the car a large telephoto lens. When the PSYOPs photographer saw that, he panicked and he just fled. And we never had anything we couldn't deal with him ever again. They had both confirmed that the man, they saw the shooter lowering the rifle after the shot, and they had both confirmed that it was not James Earl Ray.
Well, as you alluded to earlier, in 1999, you did win a civil trial against Lloyd Jowers, representing the King family, which is a remarkable story in and of itself, and we could talk about that alone for hours, but I think that just is an incredible achievement, and yet, still, as I say, the official story that most people hear and will be regurgitated every year on the anniversary is simply focusing on James Earl Ray. Tell us about the cover-up that has been ongoing about this murder and how high it extends.
Well, the cover-up is very comprehensive and consolidated because the corporate media in America, the mainstream corporate media in America is controlled, totally controlled now with respect to stories of this sort and evidence of this sort. They're not protecting people who have died. That's not their main reason. The main reason is they're protecting institutions and government credibility and ongoing budgets and things like that. But they basically control all of the media in the United States with respect to these stories. Even the progressive media will not touch this as a rule. The government started putting out books. I mean, Hoover was involved in this very early on, right after the assassination. From right after the assassination until fairly recently, when within the last year or two, another book has come out by a fellow called Tavis Smiley, who is a host of a progressive program, I guess it's on CNN. Anyway, he put out a book and on the side. He was the last one, but there are any number of books that have come out, and I go through that list and analyze the degree of media cover-up. When we had the trial in '99, the media didn't cover it. They would come in when Coretta testified or Andy or someone testified, but they would not cover the vital evidence of how the crime was committed to the extent that we knew it in '99. I published a book called Act of State. I published basically the details of that trial, but even then, that was published in 2003. We didn't have all the information that we eventually got, and have now put in the book, The Plot to Kill King, which you're referring to. So there's been an extensive media cover-up. It's across the board, and I want to say it's total, but it's gotten worse. When I came back from Vietnam, Look magazine was interested in taking the story that I wrote in Ramparts and putting it into Look, which would have given it a nationwide audience. And as I was asked to come in for a meeting with Bill Atwood, who was the publisher and the managing editor of Look. And as I walked into his office, he came to greet me and put out his hand. We shook hands, and he said, "Thank you for coming. And you may be interested in knowing that I had a visitor last week." And I said, "Well, who would that be then, Mr. Atwood?" And he said, "Averil Harriman flew in from Washington to see me." And I said, "Well, that's interesting. What did Governor Harriman want?" Averil Harriman, of course, was governor of the United States, a long-term aspirant for the White House, I guess ambassador to Russia at one point in time, a real doyen of the Democratic Party organization. He said, "Well, Governor Harriman said to me, he brought me greetings from the president, who wanted to know how I was doing and wishing me well. And then he said, but the president had a favor to ask of me." And I said, "Oh, what would that?" He said, Atwood said, I asked him what that would be then. He said, well, the president would be very grateful if you would never publish anything that Bill Pepper wrote. And he said to me, now, how does that make you feel? You're not 30 years old. The president of the United States is worried about my publishing something that you, as a young journalist, which I was at that time, as a young journalist, has written. And I said, Mr. Abbott, I'm more interested in what your response was to Governor Harriman. He said, well, I told him we were going to meet you next week. And if we believed in what you had to say, we were going to publish. And by the way, give the president my best regards. Now, Bill Atwood was a man of extraordinary character. And he was the type of person you want to see in media, to be concerned about truth and all of that. And his likes are gone. Unfortunately, that article never appeared because the next week, Bill met with Jim Garrison, the district attorney of New Orleans, on the John Kennedy investigation, the John Kennedy assassination, and I met with Bill. It must have been 5-6 hours. I mean, we had a long meeting, but I think with Garrison he went on for longer, maybe 7 hours. I think they went to dinner even. He called Atwood called Bobby Kennedy at 1:00 in the morning and said, Bobby, I'm shaking in my shoes because I've just had this long meeting with the district attorney of New Orleans. He's shaken me to such an extent he's convinced me that the CIA were the operatives who killed your brother. And the response from Bobby was, we know that, but I've got to get the White House in order to reopen this case. That was at around 1, after 1 a.m. At 4 a.m. that morning, Bill Atwood had a heart attack. And he left Look magazine, never to return as a managing editor. Some years after he died, I spoke to his widow, and she was very gracious, and she said, look, Bill had a lot of respect for you and your work, but please just leave me out of this. Don't bring me in any way. I have to raise 2 children in this country. And of course I have respected her wishes up to the present time. So I detail the cover up in excruciating detail, I suppose, in the Plot to Kill King, but it's not a good and happy story for freedom of the press and media in the United States. Orders to Kill was to originally have been published by HarperCollins. They actually won an auction to do it. And then when it came right down to it, I got a call from the president of the company. I was in London at the time. I had moved my first family to London in 1981 because of threats. And there was no way to raise a young family in that kind of environment, so I moved them, and they were raised at Cambridge in England. Anyway, the president of HarperCollins called me and asked me, he said, yes, we want to publish a book. We'll make you a millionaire. You'll be a wealthy man. You'll be well known. Story will be well told, but you have to take out 1 chapter. So what chapter would that be then? It's the chapter on the military. We cannot publish a book showing the government of the United States through its military having any involvement or at all in this case. It would be so damaging to our bottom line. You know, we have problems with the IRS and with the FCC, and it's not something we can do. So you can write another book about it another time, but this book, if you want us to publish, we can't do it. And so I reflected on that and then took the book to a smaller publisher so the whole story could be told, because I believed it's an integrated story and should be told that way, and nothing should be left out.
The story of the cover-up, which you do detail in excruciating detail, as you put it in the book, is harrowing in so many ways. And I think that Bill Atwood story, which again you do relate in detail in the book itself, really does encapsulate that. And as you say, I mean, the Bill Atwoods of the world are few and far between in the media these days.
Yeah.
Luckily, we are having a not just national, but international conversation to an international audience of people all around the globe who are increasingly finding ways to get past these corporate media gatekeepers that have existed for, well, at least the last century of mass media communication. So that is something of a bright spot, but it does bring me towards the final question here, which relates to the fact that I myself, and I imagine a large proportion of the audience, were not even born when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, or JFK, or RFK. And although these were obviously extremely important touchstone events that have helped to shape our modern world, they are now nearly half a century in the past, and myself, and I imagine many others in the audience, have been motivated to pursue these types of subjects based on more recent events, like those of September 11th, 2001. Given your nearly 40 years, or 40 years now, of investigation into the MLK case, what can that investigation, and what has resulted or not resulted from it, tell us? And how could you counsel those who are seeking the truth about the lies and obfuscation of September 11th?
Well, I'm starting work on another book which deals with political assassinations in history, so that Americans in particular don't think that the assassinations that we suffered in the 60s, including the taking of the Prophet, which is what I believe Martin King was, and I think we're seeing the results of his prophecy now upon us, that they don't think that that the American experience is unique, because it's not. Throughout history, going back to the beginning of human society, political assassinations have occurred, and I'm attempting to look at about 50 of what might be 1,000 of these in human history, in some detail, to show the fact that this is the ultimate way that a ruling class or ruling forces perpetuate their interests and their rule. When they can't compromise, when they can't in some way co-opt or corrupt a meddlesome nuisance of a human being in their midst, they ultimately will resort to removing him. And that was a discussion that I know that Hoover had very often with H.L. Hunt, at that time, the wealthiest man in America, the oil man, because I got his assistant to reveal a great deal about Hunt's connection with Hoover. That's a very important thing to understand, that Hoover took the position quite consistently that King would have to be removed, whereas Hunt was trying to demean him and diminish him in some way or another. So I think false flag operations are prevalent today as they were before. Political assassinations, indeed, are as prevalent today as they have always been. We've been involved in these kinds of actions all over the globe on behalf of the ruling forces of this empire. And I don't see that changing without a storm. Without a storm that they are going to bring down upon themselves, and I think we're heading in that direction now, so that eventually once again the masses will have to assert themselves in asserting their power. Two roads to power are money and numbers, and it's clear where the money is, and increasingly where it is. But it's also always been clear that the numbers are a threat. So long as they can remain fragmented, single issue focused, kept apart with respect to their very good work on those single issues, and not unified, then we will not have the revolution that is required to completely restore social justice and human principles and values that we have been told exist. So I would not be surprised to see one false flag after another, one assassination after another, and I also expect to see it covered up. And very much, if one has any question about what really happened in terms of the gas attacks in Syria, one should read Dr. Theodore Postel or Tom Dugan, the journalist who is actually resident in Damascus. But read Postel's analysis of exactly the facts of what happened, and then there'll be a better understanding of the condemnation of the Syrian government. I don't want to go on about that, nor do we want to get off into September, the events in September 2001. But we need an enemy. The empire needs an enemy. It needs an enemy to justify militarism and military support. And America is as Martin King said, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world over the last 60 years has been the government of the United States. But it needs an enemy, and it had the enemy with the Soviet Union, the Cold War. That went away. Now it has an enemy in the terrorists, and there is every indication that there is a lot of nefarious questions about the creation of these terrorist organizations and their support. So I think we can draw our own conclusions, but must look very carefully at events as they unfold and try to get as thorough an analysis, factual analysis, not editorial, not opinioned, but factual analysis of events that are happening around us.
Well, that is extremely important, and in that regard, I will actually post the link to that Theodore Postel analysis of the Syrian gas attack that you allude to in the show notes for this interview. But of course, the main point of this conversation is the plot to kill King, which is detailed in extensive, unbelievable, remarkable detail here in these several hundred pages. I will once again commend it to the listener and viewer's attention so that they can pick it up and learn, as it says in the subtitle here, the truth behind the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. But I'm afraid praise is not always simply unalloyed and just always just a thank you for doing the incredible work that you've done in putting this together. It always comes with an implicit request, and this time the request is in the form of, when will you write the definitive book about the truth behind the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy?
Well, I took that case on only beseeching of a member of his family and friends of his former lawyer who died, and have been trying to get a trial for Sirhan, and we have failed all the way through the Supreme Court, so I'm working on an international application now. I have to go through all the final legal steps to try to represent this man, this innocent patsy, and I have information. We have received information. We may get to that in due course.
Well, I will simply have to wait, I suppose, for that. And in the meantime, we of course do have your work on the MLK assassination that is, as I say, extremely voluminous. Dr. Pepper, I know you are an extremely busy man. I very, very much appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Okay, you're welcome, Mr. Cooper. Thank you for all you're doing, and please continue.